The Witch Trials, 17th century, Salem, Massachusetts, 1692. Inside a dimly lit, cold Puritan cottage. Rain batters against the window panes, and the fire crackles low in the hearth. The air is thick with dread. Close-up of a young woman, Margaret, 20s, sitting nervously at a wooden table, her fingers trembling as she clutches a rosary. Outside, distant chanting and the crack of a whip echo through the village. Margaret whispers, "Father, they are coming for me. They say I have the devil's mark." Her father, William, 50s, stern and weathered, stands by the fireplace, avoiding her gaze. William, coldly, "The Lord tests us all, Margaret. If you are pure, you have nothing to fear." Margaret's breath catches. A loud knock sounds on the door. She jumps. Margaret whispers, "They think I cursed Sarah Turner. Father, please." William turns to face her, his eyes cold and distant. "William, you should pray for your soul." The door bursts open. Two village men, Thomas and Isaac, enter with grim expressions. Thomas the magistrate calls for Margaret. It is time. Margaret is dragged from her seat, pleading. Later, Margaret is tied to a wooden post in the village square, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The townspeople watch, murmuring accusations. A magistrate reads from a parchment. "Magistrate, by the grace of God, you have been found guilty of witchcraft. The fire will reveal the truth." As the flames are lit, Margaret screams. Suddenly, the sky darkens unnaturally, and the flames roar higher, turning a sickly green. Her eyes widen in terror as something unseen stirs within the shadows. Margaret, screaming, "I am not alone." The villagers recoil as a demonic figure materializes behind Margaret, its grotesque form rising from the flames. The Plague Doctor, 14th century, Florence, Italy, 1348. The Black Death ravages the streets. We are inside a wealthy merchant's house, where a dying man, Giovanni, 40s, lies on a bed, his face pale and covered in dark sores. A plague doctor, masked, cloaked, enters the dimly lit room, his heavy boots echoing off the stone floor. The smell of death is overpowering. He stands over Giovanni, examining the dying man with cold detachment. Plague doctor, flat, muffled voice, "The humors are imbalanced. His soul will soon depart." Giovanni's daughter, Isabella, 20s, stands in the corner, eyes wide with fear. "Isabella, please, there must be something you can do. My father cannot die like this." The plague doctor methodically takes out a series of vials from his bag and begins preparing a remedy, ignoring Isabella's pleas. Plague doctor, voice low. "The sickness will take him, but not in the way you think." Isabella steps closer, her voice shaking. "Isabella, what do you mean?" The plague doctor pulls his mask back slightly, revealing an impossibly old face, eyes sunken and hollow. Plague doctor, once the fever sets in, it opens a door to another place. He will not rest in peace. Climax, later, Giovanni begins to convulse violently, foam spilling from his mouth. Isabella screams for help, but the plague doctor watches impassively. Isabella, crying, "Father." Giovanni suddenly sits upright, eyes glowing with a strange light. He begins to speak in a guttural voice, one that is not his own. "Giovanni, I am beyond your reach now. The dead rise. They hunger." Giovanni lunges at Isabella, but the plague doctor holds him down with surprising strength. Plague doctor, he belongs to the pestilence now. As the scene closes, the camera zooms in on the plague doctor's eyes, which flicker with a faint glow, revealing he is something far older than human. The Haunted Trench, World War I, France, 1916. In the muddy, claustrophobic trenches of the Western Front, soldiers are huddled together, rain pouring down and artillery booming in the distance. The air is thick with tension. Private Harris, 20s, gaunt and shaking, sits with a cigarette in his hand. His friend, Lieutenant Carter, 30s, sits across from him, trying to keep morale up. "Carter, just keep your head down, Harris. It'll be over soon." Harris stares blankly into the distance. Harris, it's not the Germans, sir. It's what's out there, in the fog. Carter frowns, leaning in closer. Carter, what do you mean? Harris looks around nervously, lowering his voice. Harris, I've seen them, crawling out of no man's land. The dead, they're coming back. Carter scoffs, but the fear in Harris's eyes unsettles him. Carter, you've been in the trenches too long, lad. You're seeing things. Suddenly, a faint, eerie wail echoes from the distance. Both men freeze. Asterisk climax, night falls. The trench is eerily quiet. Fog rolls in over no man's land. Harris and Carter stand watch, their rifles ready. Out of the fog, dark shapes begin to emerge, shambling, rotting figures in tattered uniforms, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Harris, panicking, sir. I told you. They're coming. Carter stares in disbelief as the figures draw closer, their whispers filling the air. Whispers, come join us. Come die with us. The dead soldiers climb into the trench. Gunfire erupts, but they keep coming. Harris is dragged into the fog, screaming. Carter fights desperately, but he is surrounded by the dead. As the scene ends, the camera zooms out, showing the trench overwhelmed by fog, the dead soldiers swarming over the living like shadows. The whispers grow louder, echoing into the darkness. These scenes can be expanded with more dialogue and character development, but they provide a solid foundation for a historical horror anthology that blends real events with supernatural terror.